This program was first broadcast on Canterbury's access media station, Plains FM, and was made with the assistance of New Zealand On Air.
Today in the studio, I've got Julie Burgess-Manning with me. She's a dear friend and a psychologist, and we are both parents of teenagers, and we really want to talk about ourselves as parents and how we probably need to be a bit braver in our parenting. Thanks for joining us for Being Real Parents with me, Anna, and my colleague and buddy,
Kate. We work in the parenting space.
And it's here where we'll talk about our worlds as parents, the good, the not so good, and the hilarious, and mix this with what we know about behaviour and psychology. Hey. So we've
nice to be back.
Oh, so nice to have you back. Yeah. So we did an interesting podcast a while back about how we need to be saying no.
Yeah.
And then over the week, I want to talk to Julie again because she's really interesting. I'm talking about you, like you're not here. You're really interesting. And I really enjoy and get lots of energy from you always. It's like a sparky cordial, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then I said to you, come and talk to me. And you said, yeah, cool. And I went, what are we going to talk about? And then I sent through all sorts of ideas. And then you came back to me with, I think we should talk about being braver with our teens. And I went, cool, great idea. And then when I was early this morning when I was preparing, I was like, I wonder what she means by that.
Yeah, interesting, eh?
Yeah.
And then we thought, I bet there's some overlap. And there is some overlap, right?
Yeah.
So I was thinking mostly about, actually, it's a bit of a challenge from one of my teens who said to me, Mum, I don't think you're brave enough with me. Interesting, isn't it? Because she probably just heard me do the saying no, how to say no to your teen. And then she's like, hang on. Mum has to learn how to say yes to her teen. So that's an interesting conversation. And so I reckon we could cover some interesting topics like going out.
Yeah.
Sex, drugs, rock and roll.
Yeah. Trust. Boundaries.
Communication.
When I've stuffed up.
Yeah. How to go back.
You haven't say yes.
Yeah, I was like, yeah. No, I haven't stuffed up. So.
Yeah, Anna, you talk about it.
Yeah, it's just, we can talk about your stuff ups.
Happy to, always. So lots, isn't there?
Yeah.
But it's an interesting thing that she's come up with, okay, you need to say yes as well, which is, being braver, being trusting, following our kind of intuition around stuff.
Yeah, and you know what it strikes me we're doing, right? We haven't really got a prepared way to go with this because this is what you should do as parents, right? Reflect.
Yes.
On your parenting.
Yeah, good point.
And so you don't really know where that's going to take you. So for our audience today, that's a little insight into we're not sure where this is going to end up because actually that's how parenting goes. I was thinking about this, how it's not black and white, so we can say it's saying yes or saying no, but actually we should be grey.
Yeah.
We should be considering, just like we want our teens to learn about it's not always one way. You've got to think through stuff. You don't have an instant response to something.
No, and so parenting happens in your face often, and you just don't have that time to go, hey, can I just have a wee think about that?
Yeah.
So we're modelling the uncertainty of parenting.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? Which brings to mind a really good article that I read many years ago. It's by a family therapist. And it was called Safe Uncertainty.
Right.
So knowing that you can be uncertain and that's okay, you can do it in a safe way.
Yeah.
So I guess this is what we're doing, really. The conversation is about that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It's interesting though, isn't it? Because we talk about, having confidence as parents, and I think the confidence actually is in it's okay to not be sure. And
absolutely.
And it's okay to continue conversations with our kids in order that we just kind of are finding out. I mean, we've never done this before, hey?
No.
And
so
even
figuring it out.
Yeah. And even if we did, that child is probably different to the next child.
Completely.
Yeah. And so...
And you're in a different spot with them
Quite.
as well, so...
Oh, exciting.
Yeah.
You're listening to Being Real Parents with Kate and Anna on Plains FM 96.9.
So you said this idea of saying yes and being braver came from your daughter.
Yeah, it was a bit of a challenge.
Yeah. And do we know their thoughts around this? Do we know?
Well, I guess it's about she thinks she's trustworthy. And so I was thinking, we're thinking here particularly about going out, right, as an older teen and still living at home and still at school.
Yeah.
But wanting to go out with friends and having a bigger social group suddenly, you know, expanding into that sort of age where you go out and you go to parties and you drink and you have sex and stuff. See, I had to pause before I said it.
I was just watching you say it. Going, oh, interesting, okay.
So she's like, Mum, when she first started doing this, she wanted to, without giving too much away, she wanted to make sure that I trusted her.
Yeah.
So I was quite impressed by that.
Yeah,
That's quite cool.
Yeah, that is very cool.
Yeah, and because she didn't want me to slam down the, you know, saying no thing on her.
Yeah, after the last podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so she was like, you know, I can prove that I'll be all right. And she has pretty much. But I also have been able to see that what fires me up, what makes me scared as a parent is I see other people that aren't doing safe things around, right? And of course she's going to be in those environments.
Yeah.
And of course we were in those environments. Yeah. So we know what it's like. So that's what I'm drawing on too.
So she's saying to you, Mum, I'll be fine. And then you're looking for evidence of her fineness based on her experience in past.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And she's actually stepping up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is what we want them to do, right? We want them to start taking on management of their selves.
Yeah. Because we can't avoid this, can we?
No. This is growing up.
This is growing up. Yeah. Yeah. My own experience of avoiding was same instance. Eldest daughter came to me. It was her 16th birthday, and you know she'd been to 16 birthdays before, and I knew what that looked like, and was basing that also on my past experience. You know, my own teenagehood.
Yeah.
And so it freaked me out. I wasn't ready for it, and so I made up this elaborate lie when she asked me, because I didn't have a chance to say to her, do you know what, I just need to think about that, or can we talk about that a bit more, or tell me about what this might look like, you know, blah, blah, blah. So instead what I did was, no, we're not doing that, because I've magazine on the table with Stewart Island on it. We're going to Stewart Island, and for your birthday, and
Excellent.
I'm taking your friends.
Fantastic.
So, you know,
Luckily it wasn't Hawaii or
yeah.
something sitting there, wasn't it?
Yeah, quite. So, you know, the remainder of my credit card later on a trip that I made up and then had to follow through on, as opposed to just being brave and having the conversation around the 16-year-old birthday. And maybe also being brave and saying, nah.
Yeah.
I'm not up for that, actually.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I feel comfortable with that.
Yeah, and actually I'm not saying we should say yes to everything.
Yeah, quite.
And in fact, that leads us into that whole black and white thing, right? Last time we talked about saying no, this time maybe we're talking about being brave, saying yes, but actually what you've just talked about is being reflective as a parent and teaching kids that there's not necessarily just a yes and a no, there's a grey in between.
Yeah.
And that we reason our way through that a bit.
Yeah.
And so like those questions you said, you could have said in that moment, hang on, slow down, let's think about this, or I need some time about it, or tell me what that looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are your expectations here? What are you thinking about this? Because, I know that for the parties that my parents held for me, they were horrified at how it all panned out because they had no idea about what it was that I was getting up to at weekends.
Yeah.
And, we've talked about that before, that my eldest Olive pointed out to me that her experience of teenagehood was more similar to my experience of teenagehood than mine was to my own parents. And so, that brings a bit of fear, for us, and knowing, we think we know.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is as well, is that, but we need to also go, okay, cool, so this isn't in common, and actually things might have changed, and I need to figure out.
What's changed.
Yeah.
And how we do that.
Yeah.
And I have been surprised how things have changed in ways I didn't expect.
Yeah, same.
So I've had experience of the kids saying, Mum, we would never do what you did.
Yeah.
Don't be stupid, So
yeah. That's right. Or just their kind of insight into stuff or maturity around stuff that I didn't have available to me at all.
No. I mean, they have a whole lot more, for example, discussion about consent conversations.
Yeah.
And a whole lot more about what's okay in terms of letting your mates drink drive. There's a whole lot more than we had, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
That was only just starting, I think, when I was doing that. It was only just beginning to have conversations about keeping ourselves safe and stuff. So.
Agreed. And, we are coming from a position of parenting where we're lucky enough to, have done, have relationships with our kids that they do tend to talk to us about what's going on in their world.
Should we talk about that a bit?
Yeah, because we're both lucky.
Yeah. That we've got that.
Yeah, and because it really supports what we're talking about now. Because you said to me, that you've got some experience of what this has been like for your daughter, and that she's showing that she, has some real maturity around this stuff. But yeah, there's kind of like, how did we get to that point where our kids are coming to us and saying...
Yeah, and I think that's a really big conversation. I have it a lot with clients when I'm working on parenting issues with them, and when they've lost that connection perhaps with a child. Because now, I mean, this used to happen in my youth too. You'd go off to your room or you'd go on the phone for an hour or something in the hallway or something until Dad kicked you off and said, somebody needs to ring me. But now you can go to your room and shut your door and immerse yourself in the internet, right, for hours and hours.
Yeah.
And you can talk to your friends, you can video call them, you can have all those connections happening in your room. It can be a very interactive space, right?
Yeah.
And so how does a parent get past the door that's closed, right? Because you want privacy, which is fair. When you're a teen, you want some privacy and you want to be able to develop your own relationships. But how do you get through that very daunting door, right?
Yeah.
What do you do?
What do? I suppose I make time to connect. So I do that purposefully. And then...
So you mean it's not just as a bypassing or passing by in the hallway or something, it's an intentional go and find them and do something.
Yeah. Or just sit on the end of the bed, say hey.
Yeah, that's what I do too.
And I think the other thing is that how we talk to our kids.
Yeah.
So there's that thing about, in any interaction, not any interaction, I mean, sure, there's, brush your teeth and but in the interactions where it's important, turning to them, and actually kind of engaging on that small stuff that you're hearing about, because it's a real privilege, eh?
It is cool, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, so I think, and even in the stuff where I think, in my head, like they're coming to me with something, apart from the 16th party, I try to kind of remove my own judgment from it and come from a sort of curious place, letting go of what I think I know.
Yeah.
And
so you're asking them to be, you're doing what you're asking them to do. So you want them to be reasonable and think stuff through, and you're going to be reasonable. Oh, and we talked about listening, right?
Yeah.
About doing some reflective listening. Would you be doing that at that time?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, any good conversation is talking and listening, hey? And I think that, and I've caught myself doing a lot of talking, especially when something comes up that I'm kind of a bit sort of wary or worried about, whatever, or think I know about.
Yeah.
But if you come to something because, sorry, I'm just thinking maybe people don't know what reflective listening is. So it's that thing of when your teen comes to you and they tell you something, you're just pushing aside anything that you're thinking
your
that
first
moment.
reaction. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can do summarising of what they've said. Okay, cool. So it sounds like you're and just kind of just really reflect on what they've told you. Yeah. And if you're, tell me, and tell me more about that. That sounds really interesting. I'd love to know more about that. Or, gosh, I'm wondering whether or not you're feeling a bit worried about that. Do you want to, So that sort of
yeah. So I also think about reflective listening. You can choose what to reflect. You can choose to reflect the content of what they're saying. So you're saying blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Or you can choose, like you just said, to reflect the feeling of what they're saying. I noticed when you said that you hesitated, or you looked a bit sad, or you looked really happy about that, or and you can, and that opens the conversation a bit more. And also, I have this word that we use a lot in family therapy, curiosity. So, and that's a non-judgmental space to be in. If you are tending to jump into the whole, oh no, this will be like this, make some negative judgments about it. If you can jump your brain into, I'm really interested in that, tell me more about it. What was that? What does that look like? Unfold it for me, what are the parts to it?
Yeah.
Then you get a whole lot more information than if you go, oh, but you might be, and say something negative, or
Yeah, it does make sense. And I was just thinking about how when our children are little, we're really happy to discover things with them. Hey, like inside of play.
That's curiosity too, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and so we're doing the Lego, and there's that. There's always that orange thing that I didn't know what that was. And so my children taught me that, it's the one thing that breaks the bricks apart or whatever.
I don't even know what that is now.
It's new.
Right, I've learned something on it.
You look for it. And I think what happens as our children grow is that we want to demonstrate to them in some way that we are experts and they should come to us and we know the answers. And do you know what I mean? And I think that, that's where the relationship can rupture some.
Maybe that's what we're hitting on here, is that phase of growing up from later teen to adult is all about learning that your parents don't know everything.
Yeah.
And that maybe you can stand on your own 2 feet and know some stuff that they don't know, and then you can give it to them, And as a parent, backing off knowing is quite hard, eh? It's scary.
Especially when it comes to stuff that we, have some judgment around, like these parties, like sex, like drugs and alcohol. And it's kind of like if we can sort of like, come to that the same way we did to our children, when they were putting together a Lego thing.
Yeah.
And just go, wow, this is so cool to be involved in this conversation
really
with
nice.
you.
That's really nice, yeah.
I really want to know about this. Talk to me about how you're going to keep yourself safe in that.
Yeah.
And, I've got some experience of this, but I know that things have changed. What do you reckon? What do you think is different for you than was for me? I'd love, those are great conversations.
They are, eh? And they will lead to things like, okay, you've got some ideas about keeping you safe. What would you like me to do in there?
Yeah.
What's my bit in there, do I?
Yeah.
And we were going to talk a little bit about you getting into friends, right? Getting to know friendships that they have, because if their friends know who you are and where your limits are, then that supports your child too, right?
Absolutely.
And I think it helps your child know if their friends can come and talk to their parent, not about their deepest secrets, I don't mean that, but, that it's a reasonable relationship there and you know a little bit about them, then I think that really supports that safety in the group.
And it also gives you insight into their world a little bit too, if you can, have those people over, or you're seeing them, reasonably regularly and they know who you are.
Yeah.
And it also means that, and this has happened for me when my kids have got into trouble, it's been those friends that have contacted me.
Yeah.
My job is to keep the friends safe in that and, and kind of, move in there as the mum.
And that shows that there's a good enough relationship both with you and your child, but with the friend and you. She knows you're a safe enough space to come to.
So who is it that we're being? I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because who is it that we're being that the friends will come around? Or who is it that we're being that the friends feel okay to call us?
I guess you're not being too dramatic about things that happen. I guess, I'm only guessing, I'm putting myself in the shoes of the friend. Are we being safe enough? You're not going to flip out?
Yeah.
I don't know.
We don't collude in the drama or the buying alcohol, for them to come around to or whatever. Like, I'm certainly
so
not
there are
that.
Boundaries. There are definitely boundaries. And then no one, maybe.
Yeah. But the other thing is as well is that I like these people. I want to, not that I want to like them. I just come to them that they're important people in my children's lives. And so, I've got to have a relationship with them too that's really positive. And
So we're talking about how this really comes down to connecting, making sure that you connect well with your teens. And it reminds me of that idea of connection before correction, which we use with little kids.
Yeah.
So that you make sure that you have the relationship before you put in the boundary, before you correct it, I should say.
Yeah.
So, my 3 top tips for being brave with teens, right?
Yeah.
Here we go. Number 1, parenting isn't about just yes and no's. It's about being grey, and it really is about being grey.
Yeah.
And being reflective.
Yeah, and being okay with being uncertain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Safe uncertainty. That's number 1. Number 2 is connection and enduring relationships. Connections are so important because they underpin communication and loving relationships, right? And enduring relationships, you want this to last and you want it to go through the phases that they're going through. They're changing into adults. You've done the first bits. You're coming to the next bit. It's going to keep on going, right? And number 3 is reflective listening and being curious, working with curiosity. Yeah, there we are.
And there are 3 good things to go back to if we're struggling with our teens.
Yeah, I think so. And I think there are also good things that you can think about for yourself, that you can think about reflection in other areas of your life. You can think about your own connections, and you can think about how you listen and are curious on yourself, but with any relationships, right?
Julie is a family therapist, and if you would like to work with her, you can look her up on Psychology Today. All of her details are there. And she also provides supervision for professionals as well. In terms of our work at Real Parents, if you're finding things tricky with your teen, we could certainly work alongside you through coaching. And you will find the details of that on our website, www.realparents.org.nz, or you could just email me directly, anna@realparents.org.
Awesome. Thanks for being with us today.
We hope you've learned that while parenting is challenging sometimes, that's totally normal. It's been fun having you with us. Keep being amazing. Bye!